called The Lost Book of Herbal Remedies, The Power of Plant Medicine. And here's just a glimpse of what you'll find in it. With hundreds of healing plants, I knew I had to find a way for people to quickly pinpoint the one they need. So when you open your new book, you'll find not only an index with the medicinal plants, but also an index with diseases and afflictions, so you can search by your specific needs. I also included color photographs and easy-to-follow identification descriptions. There is also an easy-to-follow alphabetized appendix, so you can easily find a plant or illness. For example, this is one of the plants you'll find in the Lost Book of Herbal Remedies. I'm pretty sure it looks familiar because it grows in most American backyards, and most people weed it out. But what they don't know is that this plant contains a powerful milky substance called lactucarium. While this substance doesn't contain any opiates, it has similar effects, acting directly on the central nervous system to lessen the feeling of pain. Inside the book, you'll find full instructions on how to turn it into a pain-killing extract that you can use daily or whenever you are in need. I'll also show you the common U.S. driveway weed that has become the most expensive and sought-out plant in Venezuela after the pharmacies ran dry. You'll also find 2 plants that I've used many times. From now on, I hope you'll take advantage of their healing power too. On day 42 of the Alone Show, I accidentally cut my knuckle while gutting a fish. The wound was very deep and most likely would have gotten infected. Luckily, I found yarrow, which, besides its antibiotic properties, quickly stops bleeding by contracting the blood vessels. And, most importantly, I found usnea, the powerful antibiotic you've probably already seen growing on tree trunks. I dressed my wound for 3 days with these, and it healed so well that now you can barely see the scar anymore. On page 55, you'll find out the strange thing that happens when you pour salt into a cabbage. The end remedy offers some of the best protection possible for your digestive tract, regulating bowel movement and preventing both diarrhea and constipation. Of course, in the book, you'll also discover the 3 herbal tinctures I'm using to manage my MS. Because MS is an autoimmune disease, you should know that all 3 tinctures are effective remedies that can be used for all the other autoimmune disorders. One of the tinctures that I'm taking daily is an adaptogen. That means it decreases the biological and oxidative stress of the diseases, fights chronic inflammation, and repairs damaged tissue. Unlike Humira, methotrexate, or other medication that suppress your inner doctor, the other 2 tinctures have an immunomodulatory effect. That means they bring you back to balance. If your immune system is hyperactive, they downregulate it, but only until the inflammation subsides. One works by balancing the nerve growth factor, which, besides nourishing connections between neurons, has a pro or anti-inflammatory effect depending on the case. So while usually the nerve growth factor keeps the immune system on high alert, when the inner doctor is already activated, causing inflammation or tissue damage, the nerve growth factor sends a signal to calm it back down. According to a 2017 medical study published in the International Journal of Molecular Sciences, nerve growth factor activates pathways necessary to dampen the inflammatory response and limit tissue damage. That's probably why nerve growth factor has been discovered in the cerebrospinal fluid of multiple sclerosis patients, in the synovial fluids of rheumatoid arthritis, in the sera of patients with lupus, and so on. It shows the body's effort to avoid excessive inflammation in that area. I could go on and on about the biology behind it, but in the end, it doesn't even matter. What matters is that they helped me and many of my patients get our lives back. And if an autoimmune disease is robbing you or a loved one of health and joy, then you have absolutely nothing to lose by trying these 3 tinctures. As you can probably imagine, the nerve growth factor also plays a tremendous role in helping people with neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. These 3 remedies will not cure these diseases. So far, nothing can, and anyone claiming otherwise is just giving desperate people false hope. But by strengthening the connections between neurons, they may add more good years for those of us afflicted by these terrible conditions. Money may not grow on trees, but many of the remedies you pay money for do. This one that you'll find on page 221 is a fast-acting treatment for irregular heartbeats with the added benefit of lowering bad cholesterol levels. You'll also discover a tree called slippery elm. The inner bark of this tree contains a substance called mucilage. When taken orally, mucilage becomes slit and coats the mucous membranes in the intestinal tract, soothing inflammation, relieving pain, and giving your bowels a much-needed rest to heal themselves. If you have any digestive issues like Crohn's disease, ulcers, gastritis, heartburn, colitis, tonsillitis, or gastroenteritis, then you absolutely need to try it. One of the most powerful Native American ointments was made from what they called the Tree of Peace. This Haudenosaunee ointment that we almost lost to history relieves back, knee, neck, shoulder, ankle, and wrist pain caused by any form of arthritis. The active compound in this ointment was found to be pycnogenol, which inhibits the inflammatory chemical signals in our body and provides mobility to your joints. A review of 3 randomized, double-blind, and placebo-controlled medical studies of middle-aged patients suffering from osteoarthritis found that it reduced the pain by roughly 42%, stiffness by around 43%, and physical performance improved by an average of 44%. You'll also find out the plant that boosts your energy and relieves foot pain when you wear it inside your shoes. Another plant you'll find in the Lost Book of Herbal Remedies is boneset, which can easily be turned into one of the most powerful antipyretics. This means that it drastically reduces a fever. In fact, the name boneset was derived from the plant's use in the treatment of breakbone fever. As we age, men get an inflamed prostate, while women develop what's called an overactive bladder. The name is different, but the result is the same. It starts with more and more frequent bathroom trips, some at 3 a.m. that will cost you a good night's sleep and leave you feeling dizzy the next day. Luckily, there's a very effective remedy for both. All you need are 2 extremely powerful plants found all over America. One will flush out and prevent any urine buildup, while the other will take care of the underlying inflammation which affects the muscles. But I must warn you, there is a side effect. Some people following this treatment experience a tremendous surge in their sex drive. On page 203, you'll find a gorgeous plant that regulates thyroid hormones, helping people with hypothyroidism increase their energy levels and lose weight. You will also find a plant that has a high concentration of chromium. Several studies have now demonstrated that chromium controls the metabolic action of insulin. One of them showed that a 10-month treatment with chromium in 833 patients with type 2 diabetes significantly reduced their fasting glucose levels beginning with the first month. Chromium is extremely rare nowadays because of the food processing methods that remove most of the naturally occurring chromium from foods. Maybe this is one of the reasons why type 2 diabetes is so common today, but 100 years ago, it was a rarely occurring disease. While our grandparents consumed almost every part of this plant, today it has become invisible to most Americans. On page 61, you'll discover the plant commonly used as chicken feed that shrinks and heals varicose veins over time. Allergies are not to be taken lightly. It's a warning sign that your immune system is not acting the way it should. On page 169, you'll find a plant called butterbur. This plant is so special because it contains antihistamines. So you would reasonably assume that it has the same effect as antihistamines found in allergy medication, right? Wrong. When butterbur was compared in a randomized controlled trial with cetirizine, the active ingredient in Zyrtec, although the results were the same, butterbur didn't produce the sedative side effects associated with cetirizine. Same results, no money, fewer side effects. Basically, you're paying for the side effects. If you ever have to go out foraging, will you know which one of these plants is edible, which one is a remedy for high blood pressure and tension, and which one is poisonous? The Native Americans knew all too well, and probably our grandparents did too. But very few people nowadays could give the correct answer. As a survivalist, I can tell you that this kind of skill will set you apart from your group during dark times, and will probably turn you into their guide, or even their savior. I'm sure that you've seen this plant too. It grows in most forest glades. You'll discover how to use it effectively to treat not only common colds, but lung infections as well. Also, breathing in the steam from leaves that have been boiled in water will immediately calm any asthma attack. This is probably why 100 years ago, people with asthma didn't die from it. On page 200, you'll also discover a plant called Pipsissewa, which in Cree means to break up into small pieces. That's because of its ability to break up and dissolve painful kidney stones. This plant also contains a substance called hydroquinone, which disinfects the urinary system and heals inflammation of the bladder. If you've ever walked through the edges of a woodland and gotten some sticky burrs attached to your clothing, you can bet you've just passed by this plant. The best way to deal with this annoying weed? Eat it. Native Americans used it as a sweetener 200 years ago, and it tastes better than most greens I know. What people don't know is that this plant is also a strong diuretic you can take for poor blood circulation. If you've ever felt a tingling and numbness sensation in a limb in certain positions, you probably have bad circulation, and you should consider this blood vessel cleanser. People who use it can go from dizzy and tired most of the time to having an excess of energy in a few weeks. Another plant you'll find inside is called woolly lamb's ear. Also known as backyard bandage, this weed has been used for centuries on battlefields to stop bleeding. It's been recently discovered that it's high in vitamin K, the vitamin that coagulates the blood. It's the same powdered vitamin that we gave our soldiers in World War II to pour over the wound in case they were shot. I hope you never find yourself looking down at a wound that just won't stop bleeding. But if you do, or if a loved one has diabetes or problems with coagulation or wound healing, make sure you always have this plant on hand. A plant you want to keep close for a strong heart is called kudzu. This invasive weed has one very powerful property. It expands the arteries and vessels, lowering the blood pressure and unlocking blood flow. And in doing so, besides reducing the chances of clotting and strokes in people with myocardial ischemia, it helps treat a lot of medical problems like swollen feet or cold hands. No matter where you live in America,